The Bank of England doesn't have enough trucks to move my gold and silver. That's a problem. That's a default. Or whether we're seeing in the United States where the largest single delivery of silver ever in the history of the COMEX happened in May. Or whether we're seeing China, which is the second largest producer of silver in the world, literally buying silver from all the miners directly in Peru, which disintermediates the marketplace. They're buying what's called doré and concentrate. Doré are the bars the miners make that are crudely refined, maybe 30 or 40%, before they send them to a refiner to be purified. And concentrate is a sludge, liquid sludge byproduct of that. They're buying all of that stuff in Peru, right from the miners, and then sending it back to China to be refined. They're paying double what the West will pay, but this accumulation is totally opaque. How much did they buy? What effect does it have on the price? On the supply, nobody knows. But this is coming from the second largest producer of silver in the world. Why are they doing this? Why has India bought over 900 million ounces in the last 5 years, more than the LBMA has in total? They've bought in the last 5 years, and now Russia, accumulating it for strategic purposes by the state, the first country to say that. Well, all of these things were happening when you and I were talking over the last year or two, but now someone within the Trump administration, thank goodness, is wise enough, I believe, to have said, listen, if we don't start doing what the rest of the world is doing, we're in trouble.
Hello, Robert Kiyosaki, the Chat Radio Show. We're broadcasting from Phoenix, Arizona, where it's either heaven or hell. And right now it's close to hell. It's hot as hell, but love living here. Today's show is with a very dear friend. One of the best things about my job, per se, is I get to hang out with people who are authorities in their field. And as some of you know, I've been a hard money asset, a hard money guy for years and years and years. I mean, this here is 1964 was when they took these little quarters and they turned into copper. And it was called Gresham's Law. And Gresham's Law says that when fake money or bad money enters the system, good money goes into hiding. And there's something intuitive. I don't know what else to say about it, but as soon as I saw that copper, in 1965 or 64, immediately I started saving the real silver, getting rid of the fake silver. That's Gresham's Law. But today, as some of you know, silver is about to take off again. I remember it took off during the Hunt brothers, when the Hunt brothers tried to corner the silver market. And there was a frenzy going on there. But silver right now, in my opinion, is the number one investment you can make today, at least for the amount of gains. And then, like I said, one of the best things about my business is I get to hang out with smart guys like Andy Schectman here. So we're going to be talking to Andy about the business of precious metals. And the reason I say that is when I buy precious metals, let's say it's $10, then they add a commission, what you want to call it, onto it. But what happens when you try and sell it? And lately, YouTube's been filled with people trying to sell their gain, their gold or silver, and they're getting run around. So just about 4 or 5 years ago, I had a friend I bought several $100,000 of gold and silver from him. And when I tried to sell it to him, he gave me one of the worst prices I've ever seen. And I stopped doing business with him. And he's a local guy here, but I just didn't understand the business. And I wrote it off to that. So I usually don't sell. I buy forever and hold. So Andy is in the business of precious metals, coins and things like this. So Andy, welcome to the Rich Dad Radio Show, and I trust you can shed some light upon your business about when you sell and when you buy back, okay?
Absolutely. It's good to be back, Robert. Nice to see you. I'd be happy to be as transparent as I can.
Good. So yes, if I buy a pair of shoes for $100 and I wear it for a year, I can't expect to get $100 back. But if I buy $100 worth of silver and the price of silver goes up, I expect to get more money back. That's the nature of this business. So how does it work from your end? I mean, you obviously like it when people buy from you, but what happens when somebody comes in to sell their silver or gold to you?
So most of my career, which is 35 years now, almost 36 years, Robert, whatever product you would be selling, you would receive a premium, a excess premium above the spot price, above the melt value. Whatever the product was, some products would have a higher premium than others, but there was always a premium. We can use Silver Eagles as an example, and I can show you what you're really getting at here using Silver Eagles. So let's just pretend that you called me November 2019 and said, I'd like to buy a mint box of Silver Eagles, 500, 1 ounce, brand new United States Silver Eagles. Sure. You say, Andy, what will you sell it to me for? And if I should need to sell it back, what will you buy it for? I would have said to you something like this. Now, this would have been the same answer I would have given you for pretty darn well near 30 plus years. And I would have said, sure, Robert, I will sell it to you for $3.29 over the price of silver. I'll buy it back from you for $2.79 over the price of silver. That spread, 279 to 329, 60 cents or so, would have been our commission per coin. So $300 on a mint box. That would have been for almost my entire career. That would have been standard. Now you say, okay, I'll do that. In fact, I want to get $100,000 worth. Sure. This is November 2019. You call me back 6 months later, March, April, May 2020, the pandemic had hit. Andy, the pandemic really affected my business. I need to sell those mint boxes. You told me that you would pay me $2.79 over. Is that still good? I'd say, no, it's not. But how about $11 over? Because the demand was so high for the price of silver, and excuse me, for silver American Eagles, that in 6 months, the premium went from $2.79 over bid price to over $11 over the price of silver bid price, where it stood for most of the last, or 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023. And then things changed. They changed in a very substantive way. And that's going to get us to where we are now. So at least in terms of looking at where we were and where we were before that, you always would receive a premium above spot, but a small one. Then came the pandemic. The premiums went much higher. But let's discuss, before I get to where we are today, how those premiums are derived. Now, there's about 5 or 6 massive primary distributors. These are the distributors that work directly with the mints and the refineries globally. These are the companies that some of them are publicly traded. They spend billions with a B of dollars buying and selling precious metals every year from the global mints: South Africa, United Kingdom, Australia, Canada, and the United States, and Austria, the 6 primary mints. And their job is to provide liquidity to the market, to be a market maker. So let's go back to the pandemic. These primary distributors who have agreements with, let's say, the United States Mint, they take everything the mint will give them because there's so much demand. The mint says, we're out of product. That's it. No more product. These primary distributors then become the market makers moving forward. They are the ones that set the premiums either to the upside or to the downside. There's so much demand in 2020 and 2021 that they say, we'll pay anyone that wants to send us their Silver Eagles $11 over the price of silver, but we're selling them at 12 or 13 or 14 over. Now that spread, which was much bigger than normal, was big because you can't hedge the spread or the premium. You can only hedge the metal content. So anyways, first and foremost, your guy in Arizona really is not the one who sets the premium. It's whoever he's going to sell it to. The big primary distributors. They're the ones who set the premium. What's interesting about right now, maybe the most interesting thing about the environment we find ourselves in right now, and why the premiums are so low, is that really starting in 2024, we had the rise of NVIDIA, the accentuation of the Mag 7, the huge demand for cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin. You've talked about that for a long time. And so the American public did this 180, during the pandemic and the banking crisis from risk off to risk on. And we saw a lot of selling and non-participation in the metals market. So the premiums went down. But here's where it gets really interesting. Where we are right now is a very unique situation because you still have the American public who has yet to really take your advice, Robert. They're beginning to. They're waking up. But this is simultaneously happening when the COMEX market is experiencing the largest deliveries that they've ever had in the history of the market. In fact, the May delivery contract for COMEX, where the prices are set globally, delivered the largest amount of gold and silver in the history of the COMEX ever. The biggest money up here, they're standing for delivery. They're the ones pushing the price higher. The public hasn't. The public has a very tiny, if any, allocation to precious metals. In fact, Rick Rule says 0.5% across the entire United States, from Joe and Jane six-pack to the Harvard Endowment Fund in terms of allocation to metals. So what that means is there's more physical metal available on the street than the dealers have the ability to sell. And so as more people come in, the bid prices are getting lower and lower and lower. At the same time, the people at the top are draining the world's exchanges. It's just a matter of time. So anyways, all I'm trying to simply say is this. Until 2020, premiums were almost consistent forever. You pay a few percent over spot when you buy, you get a couple percent less, but still over the price of spot when you sell. Since 2020, everything's gone crazy, whether it be premiums that are higher than anything I've ever seen in my career, to where we are right now. And in defense of this gentleman, I will say industry-wide, the premiums are lower than I've ever seen, ever in my career. And it's not us, it's the people one step above us, the primary distributors, that are the market makers. That's really as honest of an answer as I can give you, is that when I take in $1 million worth of gold and silver, if I can sell it to my clients, great. But if I'm a coin shop in Arizona, I may not have that ability and I may not have that liquidity. So I have to turn around and sell it to a company like me or a company above me, the primary distributor, and the bid prices are going to be lower because there's so much excess supply built up because the public has been chasing profit instead of realizing what the biggest money in the world is doing, standing for physical delivery. And it's a cycle, and we're at the bottom end of the cycle now. I would expect to see premiums move much higher industry-wide as there's more awakening in the American public who finally start to say, you know, Robert Kiyosaki was right a long time ago. I should have been buying silver and gold. And when that happens, just like that, the premiums will flip. So in his defense, it's probably not him as much as it is the players above him who are bidding for the product he will return because he can't hold all that product, whether it be because he can't hedge it or because he doesn't have the checkbook to pay it and leave it sitting on his shelf. That's the real biggest answer.
So this is my question. How much power or price setting power does a average little coin dealer have? You know, because what happened was when I sold this stuff, it was my wife who caught it. And she called another friend out of, Austin, Texas. And he says, no, you got screwed. So
right.
that's what fired us off. And I stopped doing business with him. But that's what I was asking you. How much does that independent dealer have when they see you walk in the door and you got green boxes of silver or, yellow boxes of gold?
In most cases, it's like going into a movie theater to buy a box of candy and some popcorn. They got you. Most people, Robert, lack the sophistication that you have. Now, on your end, it was trust of someone you've worked with for a long time. Sending it in to a dealer like me or your friend in Austin, who I know you're talking about, both good companies, takes a more effort. You have to box it up and have to ship it by FedEx and go through all that nonsense. Rather, you throw it in the back of your car and go see your buddy down the street. That convenience is typically offset by less competitive pricing. In general, now I don't want to say all of them, but in general, coin shops do not have the ability that a company like mine does, or the gentleman that you're speaking of in Austin does, because they're long established companies that are doing millions and millions and millions of dollars of business a month and have the wherewithal to be able to write you a check for that, and to even be able to inventory it after that fact, because they can hedge the exposure. Whereas a local coin shop typically doesn't have that luxury, whether it be and of checkbook. I'll give you another example. There are a lot of people in those little coin shops that will, a guy like you, not you, but a guy like you will walk in and say, I need to sell this. And they'll say, okay, 1 second. And they'll go into the back room and they'll call me and they'll say, Andy, I have a guy in my front of my store right now that wants to sell $500,000 in gold. I can't really take that responsibility. Can I lock it in and immediately sell it to you? Sure, go ahead and do it. Bang, he'll do that. They don't have the liquidity. It's all boils down to liquidity on that local level, Robert, and that's probably the biggest issue. So not as much as you would think.
Okay. So we come back, we'll be going more into it about, like I said, it was my wife who caught it, and it was really sad because I bought a lot from this guy. And I'm still friends with him and all this, but he wondered what happened to the business. So that's why I'm asking you today is, I guess it comes down to, this is my question that we can answer when we come back. Does it depend upon an individual, a little guy like me, finding a person like you who I just do business with? When we come back, we'll be talking more to Andy Schectman, Miles Franklin. He's been in the coin business forever. I love his picture behind of him is nothing but the history of gold and silver and real money. Or as J.P. Morgan says, gold is money, everything else is credit. And so we come back again. It's like anything else in life. Who do you do business with? We'll be right back.
The U.S. dollar is dying, and most Americans are asleep. In 2025 alone, 11 countries have already dumped the dollar for trade. And China, they're not just talking, they're laying fiber optic cables under the Pacific to launch a digital currency system the world can use to cut America out. This is how empires fall, not overnight, but piece by piece, while average people sit on their couch watching the stock market and telling themselves it's going to be okay. It's not okay. We're buried under $36 trillion in debt. Moody's just slapped us with a credit downgrade. Inflation's still devouring your savings, and your 401k is just hanging by a thread in a rigged system. I've been saying this for years. Don't rely on job security. Don't trust Wall Street. Don't wait for permission. Think like an entrepreneur. Own real assets. Yes, I like gold. I own gold. But right now, silver is the play. Silver demand is exploding. Solar, EVs, military tech, water systems, it's everywhere. But supply drying up. And silver is still around $33 an ounce. I believe silver could hit $70 in 2025, maybe more. And if you want to wait around for CNBC to tell you that it's a good time to buy, it'll be too late. So here's what to do. Text silver to 24999. You'll get my 2025 Rich Dad's Guide to Silver for free. It breaks it all down. What's driving silver, why it's still cheap, and how to buy it smart before the next spike. Text silver to 24999 to claim your free guide right now.
Welcome back, Robert Kiyosaki, with our longtime friend Andy Schectman. As some of you know, I've been a gold and silver bug since a long time ago, since Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard. I bought my first Krugerrand, a South African Krugerrand in Hong Kong, and I paid $50 for it, and I still have it today. And today it's worth about $3,500. So did the Krugerrand grow in size, or did the dollar go down in purchasing power? I'll let you answer that question. But for those who followed my work, I said, I don't save dollars. I save gold, silver, and Bitcoin because I don't want to lose money. And the purpose of money, according to my teacher, Buckminster Fuller, is the purpose of money was to steal your wealth, fiat fake money. They steal your wealth via taxation and inflation. Yeah. And so we have Andy Schectman as a friend, somebody I trust dearly. So Andy, would you say it's as simple as that? You have to find that coin dealer that you have rapport with, trust, and they have a good track record.
Yeah, 100%. And I don't want to say that the local shops you shouldn't make relationships with them. You should, and they have an important role.
Right.
Not everything is easy to send off, and sometimes you're in need of something a little bit more immediate. But yes, I mean, in an industry such as ours, Robert, this gold coin is the same whether you buy it from me, your friend in Austin, or the dealer in Phoenix. What separates in this industry a product that is homogeneous is whom you're buying it from. But I think the most important thing to understand is that when you're dealing with an asset that is appreciating in value and you're dealing with larger amounts of it, you start to have fewer and fewer players who are able to provide that immediate liquidity and provide it in a fair way. Now, perhaps a local dealer would take that order, but thinks to him or herself, look, I'm going to have to offload this immediately. I'm going to have to box it up. I'm going to have to ship it to that dealer wherever they may be in order to get paid. I'm going to be out the money for several days because I just gave Robert a check and now I have to quickly turn around and get this shipped off. And that's going to take time and effort and money. So I'm going to make something for that. That's pretty much the way that they would feel.
That makes sense.
Sending it back to me, well, that's just part of what we do. It's hedged, it's done, boom. I would be the person that coin dealer may call to offload the responsibility of that order on, because he or she would know. In fact, there are people that I work with that I will wire them the money, and this isn't the smartest business decision. But if that coin dealer was my friend and someone who I've trusted and worked with for a long time, he says, Andy, I got this guy in my lobby. He needs $500,000. Can you help me? Sure. I'll wire you right now. You just send me the metal immediately. Okay, fine. So I will front wire the guy the $500,000 so he doesn't go 3 days with no money in his checkbook, because I know that he'll send me that money. That's not the smartest business decision, but that's why relationships are so important in the industry on my side, and why I wouldn't be so angry. Now, without knowing the facts, I can tell you, you can look as an example, and this is not outing anyone. JM Bullion, who is one of the most well-known companies in America, one of the most well-respected. I have nothing but good things to say about them. I'm going to just look at something because they publish their buyback prices. And just to give you an idea of how low prices are right now, JM Bullion is owned by one of the largest distributors in the United States, in fact, in the world. And if we go to their website and hit sell to us and sell to us online, we can look at, for example, American Eagles, 1 ounce gold Eagles. They're bidding random years, $32.85. That's $50 behind the price of gold. I've never seen that in my career. Never. Now, I would be higher than that. And I'm not disparaging JM Bullion. In fact, I think they're a fine company. I want everyone to know that. They are. But they publish their bid prices. They're $50 back to spot. My entire career, you would have gotten north of 2 or 3% over spot for those. And during the pandemic, as high as $200 over the price of gold based upon supply and demand. Now, I look at this as a contrarian indicator where the public is missing the boat on physical, moving into risk-on assets like NVIDIA at the same time that the world's exchanges from London to the United States and even Shanghai are being bled dry by the most well-informed and sophisticated traders in the world. That will trickle its way down eventually. But this is why the big money who understands things, who's in the information closest to it, is always ahead of the crowd. And if you can see, these players are 1, 2, 3, 4 steps ahead of the retail market down here. But that'll change very quickly. And I guess I'm going to be the lone voice of defense for this gentleman, not knowing that any of the facts. I'm simply saying premiums, I've never seen them this low, ever, especially by a reputable company like JM Bullion, who again, is at the tip of the spear.
This is my question, because what everybody wants to know really. It's like I almost never sell. I save and I don't sell. I'm an investor, not a trader. So I'm not in and out of the market. But silver is finally taking off again. What is your prognosis, your forecast, your optimism, your pessimism on silver? Because I love silver because silver is an industrial metal. It's used, as you always talk about, strategically for the military.
Yes.
And it goes boom and blows up and disappears.
Right.
Whereas gold is always here. So I love silver because it's disappearing. Every EV has it. All electronics have silver in it. What is your forecast on silver? I think today it's about 35 an ounce, let's say.
Yeah, it's even a little higher. It's above 36 right now. It is 36.60 as we speak. It touched 37 the other day. It's the it's the third time in history that it's been this high. There's been 7 attempts to break 35 since 2011. They've all failed. This is the first that hasn't. If it closes the month of June above 35, it's incredibly significant. I believe you'll get the hedge funds jumping in at that point. From a technical standpoint, that's huge. We've seen the weekly close above it, in fact, above 36. With all of the Fed announcements like the non-farm payroll and the interest rate announcement that's coming up in a couple of weeks, where they're probably thinking of keeping the rates where they are. These are all big things leading up to the end of the month. We want to see it close above 35 or 36, but ultimately, the only word that comes to my mind, Robert, is asymmetric. Asymmetrical in this respect means super low downside and amazingly high upside. There aren't many assets that you can say that about. You could have said that about Bitcoin when it was $100 a coin, very low downside, amazing upside, looking back at it in retrospect. So, but I think that's where we are with silver right now.
The reason I like silver is I'm betting against the government. In other words, I don't trust the Fed. I don't trust, I like Trump, but can they stop inflation? I don't think so.
No.
So gold and silver are really nothing to do with anything else but inflation.
Yeah, that's right.
Inflation attacks.
It's right. It's a hedge against the stupidity of our monetary policy and the irresponsibility of our fiscal policy. That's exactly right. The dollar's down 9% this year. Silver is up over 40%. And so it's an environment where you're not buying gold and silver to become wealthy. You're buying it because it is wealth. If you own enough of it, yes, in those terms, you would be wealthy. Yeah. But I think this is something that's very, very important to understand. You're the one who I credit with. I've said this comment 1,000 times. You learn from Buckminster Fuller. You can't get out of the way of what you never see coming. And that's a very big problem here. People don't see the problem with the dollar that is coming. The de-dollarization trend is continuing, and that leads to a whole slew of other problems. At the same time, the Treasury demand is falling, which leads to higher interest rates, which leads to a slowing economy, which leads to all sorts of other problems. But when I look at silver, I see some very interesting things. I see the LBMA, London Bullion Metals Association, which is a T+1 settlement system, meaning T is a trade day plus 1 to settle. Your metal should be delivered to you or moving on the third day. The LBMA says, no, we're so backed up with delivery requests, it's 8 weeks. Really? T plus 8 weeks when I'm expecting my metal in 3 days. What if I own
they can't deliver? They cannot deliver for 8 weeks.
For 8 weeks. Imagine you own the Kiyosaki jewelry empire and you're making jewelry all around the world and you source gold and silver bars in London so that when you need to fabricate your metal at the call of a drop of a hat, in 3 days, your metal's moving to your refinery where you're making this stuff. Robert, I'm so sorry, man. We're at 8 weeks because the Bank of England says there's not enough in the way of trucks or manpower. Really? The Bank of England doesn't have enough trucks to move my gold and silver. That's a problem. That's a default. Or whether we're seeing in the United States where the largest single delivery of silver ever in the history of the COMEX happened in May. Or whether we're seeing China, which is the second largest producer of silver in the world, literally buying silver from all the miners directly in Peru, which disintermediates the marketplace. They're buying what's called doré and concentrate. Doré are the bars the miners make that are crudely refined, maybe 30 or 40%, before they send them to a refiner to be purified. And concentrate is a sludge, liquid sludge byproduct of that. They're buying all of that stuff in Peru, right from the miners, and then sending it back to China to be refined. They're paying double what the West will pay, but this accumulation is totally opaque. How much did they buy? What effect does it have on the price? On the supply, nobody knows. But this is coming from the second largest producer of silver in the world. Why are they doing this? Why has India bought over 900 million ounces in the last 5 years, more than the LBMA has in total? They've bought in the last 5 years, and now Russia, accumulating it for strategic purposes by the state, the first country to say that. Well, all of these things were happening when you and I were talking over the last year or two. But now someone within the Trump administration, thank goodness, is wise enough, I believe, to have said, listen, if we don't start doing what the rest of the world is doing, we're in trouble. And this huge rush of both gold and silver into the COMEX, which is standing for delivery, which is way different than anything we've ever seen, goes to tell you that the people at the highest level who know what's coming are favoring physical possession in their own hands rather than playing the game of paper long contract, either in London or the United States. So just by that very fact that these people are accumulating this much, which is an anomaly. It's 5 feet of snow in Phoenix in July. This doesn't happen. It's happening. And that should tell everyone that all the things that you've been talking about for a very long time are now starting to manifest at the highest levels. And unfortunately, to your experience, we're still a rotation or two behind that level down here at the retail level. So a lot of these retail, especially local coin shops, they've gotten a lot of people that come in and say, look, I need to sell, maybe to put food on the table at record high credit card debt and lowest savings rates in forever. Or maybe I just need to, because gold and silver are high, I'm going to get out. And these people, unfortunately, these shops just don't have the pricing power to be as competitive as you might like at this point. I'm providing you liquidity. That may change very quickly when the demand goes shoot and everyone's buying. Yeah, sure. They'll buy it back and turn around and sell it at a profit. And that premium that you'll get will be much better. Unfortunately, you are just a victim of timing, in my opinion, more than anything.
So this is my question to you, Miles Franklin. Do you do business with little guys like me?
Oh, well, yes, I do business. We do business with every person, whether you're selling or buying $100 worth or $50 million worth, anywhere in between. And that's very important to us. Some of my best clients started out as my smallest. And so, yes, we do. We are happy to work with anyone of any size and be very transparent about it. And that's what our goal is to explain this kind of stuff so people have a better understanding. Premium is a market unto its own. It used to be only about production and fabrication. How much does it cost the U.S. Mint to turn blank disc called a planchet into a beautiful coin like this, put it into tubes and boxes and send them out? Now it's about that plus the demand versus the supply. Right now on the retail level, there's greater supply than demand. That was the polar opposite from 2020 to 2024. So it's just a cycle that we're in right now that I think will change.
Well, I thank you, my friend, and I thank you for sharing your wisdom. Because it's Miles Franklin. You guys are located in Florida.
We're in Florida and in Minnesota. Don't hold that against us. It used to be a place I was very, very proud of. It was a great place to grow up. And for anyone who would like our price list, which will be as good or better than anywhere in America, which we don't publish for various reasons, which I'll do a show on someday and explain that, info, I-N-F-O, at milesfranklin.com. Please say you saw me on this show. We will answer any questions with no obligation or just send you our price list, which will be as good or better than anywhere. And if you want to find out bid prices, let us know. We'll be happy to do that for you as well. But Robert, it's always an honor. I consider you a friend, and I always am excited to come on and chat with you. So I hope the people got something out of this, and it was just great to see you, and hope to do it again sometime real soon.
Well, we'll keep doing it because this is the time for gold and silver, and I think the dollar is in serious trouble.
Well, I hope people along the way have listened to you. You've done more than most people in this world have to open people's eyes. I, for one, thank you for it. I get it all the time. People telling me how much they appreciate what you've done to open their eyes. So thanks for letting me be just a little part of it this time. And I'll look forward to picking up where we left off, hopefully not too far down the road.
Okay, my friend. So I want to thank Andy Schectman. Again, Miles Franklin, MilesFranklin. Please check them out. Get their price list. And Andy, we'll see you on the block sometime.
God bless, my friend. Take care, Robert.
All right. And we come back, we have the final word from Rich Dad. Welcome back, Robert Kiyosaki. I want to thank Andy Schectman again, from Miles Franklin. And I do business with a lot of coin sellers all throughout the world, actually. And because for years and years and years, I've been saying, I don't save fiat dollars, I save money. And this here, when I was a kid, when I saw the copper in 1965 and the silver, I knew the government was screwing us. And then in 1971, Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard and they started printing like crazy. And as I've said for years, when they print toilet paper like this, the rich get richer because the rich have assets, but the poor and middle class get poorer because inflation also hits chicken, eggs, and milk. So when you print this fake money like this and you save fake money like this, you're in serious trouble. Again, Rich Dad makes no recommendations. We're an education company. I make no commissions on any of this. I just want you to be a smarter investor and protect your family, because this is fake and there's real money out there in gold and silver. Thank you for watching the Rich Dad Radio Show, and be very careful right now. It's very treacherous times. Thank you.
This podcast is a presentation of Rich Dad Media Network.